Well, thank you so much. On the stage with me is a high status stage because I have 2 professors, 2 generals, and 1 doctor. One of them is both a professor and a general. So I have a lot of work to do, clearly. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this very interesting panel discussion. And we can't underestimate the need and the requirement for the right education to be implemented in real life. So today's topic, Education That Works, Designing a Curriculum Around Industry Demand, is really for me about the purpose of what education is. It's not just about getting the skill. It's also about implementing the skill and having the right skill that you can use in real life. And we need that so that we can make a difference to the performance of an organization. So for me, education is a means to an end in many ways. It's also about having the skills that are needed now, but also in the future. We are seeing a greater speed at which the skill change is happening, and that is dictating, a lot from industry, which means there's potentially more of a need for us to understand those requirements and demand upfront more than ever. The other one is just getting to use the information that we now learn. So any skills that are acquired is how do you most effectively apply those skills, right? And making sure that we can not only have the skills, but be thinking in a different way. Because we are seeing with the event of AI and other technologies, it necessitates the need for us to think about things and not just do the mundane work anymore. So that's where we are seeing a big change. So let me start with you, Dr. Buddha. The first question is related to the Ministry of Education and how you are reimagining how education should look in the future to really keep pace with the future demands out there in the industry.
Namaste to all. On behalf of Minister of Education, I welcome all of you. As you know, our country is moving from a developing nation to a developed nation. It's very important to have a better infrastructure. So the supply chain management is going to play a major role. As from a Minister of Education point of view, our target is to provide a skill, employable, future-ready, technology-driven resources, not only to our country supply chain management companies, but to the entire world. So as you know, if you want to become a global powerhouse, right, so the supply chain management and logistics plays a major role. And I'm so thankful to our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, who started logistic schemes, which gives a better opportunities, Gati Shakti, which interconnects our supply chain management and logistics across the country, and improving the infrastructure of our ports, of our road infrastructure, or our storage infrastructure. If you see the number of food storaging capabilities was increased more than 46%, which is in huge numbers if you see, right? And we have a separate ministry for it, food processing ministry. I think, the India is going in the right direction, but at the same time it is very important to create resources who can manage this supply chain management system. So keeping that in mind, we from a Ministry of Education, we started including the emerging technologies as well as future ready technologies like supply chain management, and we started teaching them the technology and how technology can help supply chain management and how they can work in across the globe. Like example, if Japan needs a resource, so along with the supply chain management and artificial intelligence, we are teaching them Japanese language. So we are creating a global resource, which is much more important. And at the same time, as you know, we have ONDC, so that's again another very beautiful framework was driven so that the supply chain management points, if you see, right, the cost will get reduced drastically if you compare with any other developing and developed nations. Because if you take any courier system example in our country, right? Our sir was a few minutes back talking about the shortage of the drivers. So I take that best example. So who are these drivers in our country? They are less educated, right? Or least educated or uneducated. So using our skill ministry, we are targeting them and we are skilling them on the supply chain management, and we are upgrading, we are skilling, reskilling and upskilling them so that they meet international standards. And another beautiful thing what India approached in a recent years is that the adopting the global standards, because you can have your own standards on your own country level, right? But that doesn't meet the requirement of a global standard. I think we need to go towards a global standard level. So from Ministry of Skill point of view, Ministry of Education point of view, we are making sure that the student will have this kind of awareness, not only in English, in their own mother language, which is going to empower them, which is going to give them a better understanding, which is going to give them a practical approach through our internship as well as apprenticeship opportunities to the students. So we are not only targeting the technical students, we basically focusing technical as well as non-technical students, and we have targeted to give 10 lakh training, 10 lakh people skill training on the supply chain management in next 3 years time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning the distinction between the technical and the non-technical students. And actually, I do have a question that relates to that for General Kapoor, which is related to the engineering and vocational programs. What skills do you believe are important to be embedded within these kinds of programs?
Right. Let me begin by saying that today, technology is on the gallop. But when we look at engineering, management and vocational training, it still follows the traditional pedagogy. And therefore, there's a huge gap which is developing between what the industry needs and what the academic institutions bring forward. And I think the challenge lies in bridging this gap. Now, recently I was in Cambridge in the US, and I happened to visit the Cambridge Public Library. And why I want to share this example with this august audience is to tell you how development happens. Now, the first ground floor of the public library is identical to any good library where you got all the value-added services. But when you go to the first floor, it's industry-driven. And what you have there is a room for 3D printing, a room for laser cutting, a room for AR/VR, a room for called the AI factory, and a number of other value-added services. And who can participate here? It is voluntary to the community. So I took a session in 3D printing and laser cutting, and sitting next to me was a 10-year-old trying to 3D print his Lego. So if a child of 10 years can get exposed to technology at that age, where will it lead us? So this is the infrastructure brought in by industry. And to give it further fillip, you have professors from MIT, Boston University and others who come there and take formal classes for those engineers who are qualified to understand what CAD/CAM and computer-aided engineering is. All driven by industry and academia to build community. I think that is one very good fabric we need to generate. A second example is from the Harvard University, where I happen to go to the School of Design. Now they've introduced a program called Masters in Design Engineering, where you have doctors, architects, engineers, social studies students, economists, name it, they're all there. But the degree they get is Masters in Design Engineering. And what do? They collect that together in integrated groups, and then they visit industry. They visit government offices, both the federal and state government, and do their internship there to see what is MAGA. Make America Great Again. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding, but I'm saying that is the kind of interaction which goes on between the cutting edge, which is the student community, industry, government, and academia. And I can go on, but in the interest of time, I think we need to create such structures. Now, I happen to be a board member on the Technology Innovation Hub governing body at IIT Tirupati. 3 years back, we started with Siemens and Wipro to create a center on Industry 4.0 in IIT Tirupati, with all the possible instrumentation so that you create a platform for students to understand the nuances of Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 and introduce them to things like additive manufacturing, state-of-the-art data management, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems to get them industry ready. But this is an island of excellence. So if really you ask me, we need industry to go the extra mile, I think they have a huge CSR program. I reckon that almost half of it, which is 1%, should go towards adopting schools. Out of the 2%, 1% should be adopting schools and colleges. Let there be a formal adoption through the offices of AICTE, sitting to my right. And I think if we did that, and we created the kind of Cambridge public libraries across India, I think Viksit Bharat will happen much before 2047. And I think that is the kind of journey we have to look at. We have to look at out-of-the-box solutions. We cannot be very, very regimented and sequential about it. It has to be community engagement with industry, academia, and government. And I think we have enough instruments available, but what we need is policy initiatives and will to execute. And I think this whole of nation approach will make the difference.
Amazing, thank you so much. And I want to, yes. I want to dive in a little bit more, if we can, with Professor Kanapuri here, is when we think of the curriculum and the changes that are needed, how do we ensure that a curriculum is better suited and more adaptable to the potential changes out there, things like sustainability, supply chain analytics, and all these topics that are becoming much more important? How do you design a supply chain that is inherently affected by so many changes out there in the real world?
Super, very good question. And again,
that was for actually Kanapuri. You're welcome to give your input.
I had the privilege of doing my engineering after joining the army in one of the army institutions called the Military College of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers and College of Military Engineering. And our engineering used to be very different what used to happen in the CV street in the engineering institutions. So we are taught everything that you must know as a future-ready professional. So we are taught leadership, we are taught supply chain, we are taught international relations, in addition to engineering. It's like Tata Steel say, we also make steel. So I think we need to have our curriculums now laid out, and AICTE is sitting next to me, wherein you give a broad syllabus, a document, and leave it to the student and the faculty to decide how he wants to charter his BTech program. I think the way we are doing it today, that the first year goes in revising all the basics up to class 12, has to be thrown out of the window. There is no time to waste. There's huge gallop of technology. There's a huge gallop of technology linkages with everything else, whether it is public policy, whether it is supply chain, whether it is life cycle management, asset management, name it, technology is the centerpiece. And therefore, I think we need to get a curriculum which is like open innovation. Let each student innovate his own and create the adequate credits to be able to meet the real world challenges responsibly tomorrow.
Amazing, thank you. I'd like to, Kanapuri, if you could weigh in on that.
Yeah, I think part of it he has already answered, but let me just give my perspective at my institute, what we are trying to do in terms of bringing in those concepts. One, what we have tried to do is we are trying to bring in what the industry is looking at through various kinds of forums and interactions, which gives us the opportunity to identify what is that needed for the industry. So in due course, or in the course of identifying them, we are already offering a lot of micro credits. For example, like when you're talking of technology, we got one of the leading US-based companies, I suppose you are aware of it, Micron. We got them to align with our requirements, students' requirements, and the industry requirements. And then we jointly offered a microcredit course, so which makes them industry ready with what is currently required. Similarly, in terms of the areas of analytics or probably even in terms of sustainability, what we are trying to do is we are trying to bring in a lot of industry practitioners and the faculty collaborated courses which are most relevant and updated for the current era. And that's how we are able to align with the requirements of the industry. That's how it works, offering a lot of microcredits. And second thing is, with the NEP getting introduced and the National Credit Framework coming in, we are allowing them to put those credits in the form of the course program requires certain number of credits. We allow them to add up to their total requirements, so which helps them to build on getting all those necessary inputs which can be very useful for them as they go along in the industry. That's how we are working on that.
That's fantastic. I mean, I like the microcredits idea, because we actually do that at ASCM as well. We provide micro learnings, which we call, and it's really a great way to get those interim knowledge components as an individual goes through their journey. So thank you so much for that. That's really interesting. I'd like to move on to General Chauhan now. We have had a conversation this week already, and it was very interesting to get your perspective on how veterans going into real life after their army service, you know, the components that impact them. And I think specifically the question for you is, what kind of gaps have you seen between veterans leaving the service and the needs requirements in their civilian life?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, IPSC, for inviting me on this forum. Right, you know, very important. First, I'll talk of supply chain and come on to veterans later, since I head this organization of the Indian Army, and that is Army Welfare Placement Organization. In short, you can call it the Naukri.com of the Indian Army. Whosoever is looking for people, veterans who are trained and skilled, this is one stop shop where you can look at any level of this, whether it is senior leadership, whether it is middle, or it is junior, or at the lower level as well. So this is a huge canvas, and I would not only look at the veterans per se, also to the widows of the martyrs and the dependents. So that is my answer. It's a pan-India organization under the Indian Army. So now coming on to the veterans, you see, I talk of supply chain first. Here, there is in the defense forces, we call it, unless you have a sound logistic plan, no operational plan is going to make a success, right? So right in the beginning, we start with that we got to have this kind of a skill set and ensure that we have a very, very sound logistic chain supply. That is one. Now coming on to the veterans, you see, people looking from outside generally has a perception they're only good for war fighting. I think that's a misperception. You know, you will be surprised, we don't hire people from outside. We train our own people, whether it is supply chain, whether it is war fighting, whether it is flying, whether it is engineers. You will be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, to know that we, within our own organizations, have supply chain institutions. There's a general sitting with us. He is an expert on supply chain in Army School of Catering Technology and Supplies. We have an Institute of Material Management. Here, Lieutenant General Kapoor is sitting next to me. He just mentioned the College of Mechanical and Electronic Engineering. So these are the institutions in our organization. When we enter, from the entry to the exit, you are in that particular vertical. So therefore, there are young officers in uniform here sitting here. We're very happy to see, and thank you very much for inviting them. They are the future leaders in terms of supply chain. If these young officers lead through the most rugged terrains of the J&K, Jammu and Kashmir, right from Pathankot to Leh, with their mission that they have to supply this at a particular point in time, I think they are doing a beautiful job. Now, coming on the transition gaps which you look at, you see, as far as the job is concerned, they are masters in the job. Whether it is inventory management, whether it is transportation management, whether it is supplies management, where it comes as a transition gap is the orientation once they move out of that particular thing. Because they have a strong mindset of working in a structured kind of an environment. And I'm very happy to see such organizations coming up and training outside. You know, supply chain is a highly professional, and we have been hearing since morning. And I think Douglas very clearly highlighted this aspect of having professionals in this particular organization. And here are people, the veterans who are there, but only thing, you need to orient them as per your requirement. So the transition gap which I see, Grant, is the orientation. Yeah, today technology is coming in. Technology definitely is one of the aspects which I think they have to brush up upon. And I think a little bit of a skilled kind of program for them, or an orientation program in these verticals, will make them very successful in the supply chain. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And I mean, it's so interesting to hear about, you know, if you think historically, logistics and supply chain actually came from the military. I mean, that's where the concept really started back in the day, and then it was applied heavily into industry and the commercial world. So we've seen that whole shift happen. Back to you, Mr. Kanapuri. So I want to talk a little bit about cross-sector collaboration in general, and I want to sort of understand, you know, was there in time or a case study that you could reference where you had an external industry input that actually impacted a curriculum or changed the content that you put into a program or anything like that? It'd be great to hear if you have any cases to mention there.
Yeah, I think I can spend almost 2-3 hours on that in terms of the number of assignments which we do. I believe we have got just about 2 minutes or 3 minutes to speak. Anyway, I'll just quickly quickly tell you what kind of things we do and how it has resulted in a curriculum and leading to a program which is more industry focused or sector focused. Like I explained to you, we believe in very strong industry collaboration. We work very closely with the industry in the two ways. One is through capability building, and also work on consulting and applied research projects. We encourage industry to come to us, work on through a memorandum of understanding, and we work on multiple projects through those MOUs. Now, what has it led to? Now, one such example which I would like to share is about what somebody in the morning talked about just after the lunch. We are being, we are there everywhere seeing the role of semiconductors, and as everybody knows, it was a huge disruption of this supply chain of semiconductors during the COVID, and post that, a lot of initiatives moving towards becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat. A few companies have started their own investments in setting up these factories across the value chain. But still, we are not at the top end of the value chain. We are still working towards the assembly part of it. But yes, even there, at that stage also, what we started off as a small course in semiconductor supply chain, now we have gone up the value chain in terms of our value chain, is in terms of offering a 2-year full-fledged MBA program in manufacturing semiconductor supply chain. And that is one example I can very confidently talk, because it's not just one of such thing, it's already the second cohort which is there. There's a lot of interest, because this is where the future is going to be in terms of the semiconductor supply chain. The second area is in terms of extensively we have been hearing about analytics. We have been talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence, all these things. Now, every assignment what we do, we actually drive all those concepts, apply them, and then see to it that the organization benefits. Now, this translates into multiple short-term courses in terms of one which has led to warehouse automation program. It has also led to certain program which is mostly working on adoption of digital technologies and automation. Now, what these two examples which I'm talking of, these are real industry collaboration. One industry is working with us through a long-term MOU. The other example which I shared was through an engagement. And each of these things give a lot of opportunities. And we do a lot of such things. In fact, I'll just do a little bit of promotion also here. Those of you who are interested, most welcome to IIM Mumbai, and we would be more than happy to engage with you and take up. Thank you.
That's the perfect case study. I love that. So bringing it up a little bit, and you know, I've been hearing this a lot the last couple of days that we've been meeting with many organizations here in India, but the vision for 2047, right? There's a vision there to be a developed country in that year. And I think what's really one of the key components of that is the GDP of the country, right? So a question to you, Dr. Buddha, you know, just thinking about how GDP is impacted by supply chain and supply chain education specifically.
Very interesting question, because yesterday I was doing some kind of a research on this, because I'm a more technologist, not a supply chain expert. But the matter of the fact is 14% of the GDP we are losing just because of the inefficient logistics and supply chain management systems in our country. So if you consider our current GDP up to 4 trillion, it means somewhere around 1 trillion we are losing just because of the inefficient supply chain logistic systems. But the other side of the coin is much more interesting than anything else. We are spending somewhere around 13% of our GDP if you for the logistics and supply chain, if you compare with any developing and developed nations where they are spending only 8 to 9%. So if you see right on the both the sides, we are getting hit very hard. I think now it's a time, as our infrastructure is improving from the road point of view, from a connectivity point of view, from the sea point of view, you know, from the warehousing point of view. I think now it's a time we need to increase, and the recent national logistic policy aims to reduce that 13 to 14% to 10%, right? So I think, you know, that's a target, but youth involvement is much more important in this. That's where the Ministry of Education comes into picture. And as you know, we have a student development and faculty development programs. So before we come in, you know, I'm talking with sir that, you know, we are involving the industry experts to come into the education academy and share their experience with our students and be part of the outcome-based learning, which is much more important than the piece of paper called degree. So now what's happening is that, you know, the industry expert is coming along with the students. They are mentoring them. They're giving them some kind of a problem statements. Students are working on that problem statements, and they're trying to understand, they're trying to become a professionals. On the other side, you know, changing the mindset of faculty is much more difficult than changing a student mindset. I'm sure the professors will agree. You know, I'm a technologist, not a professor. But here, I'm so happy to share that Ministry of Education has a faculty development program which is much more successful, and we have identified 56 emerging technologies and started doing a cross teaching, you know. So example, a professor from computer science, they started learning supply chain management. You know, the professor from mechanical engineering, they started learning aerodynamics. You know, so what is happening is that, you know, they become a multi-skilled, and they started teaching all this to students in a much more better way. And at the same time, connecting them with the industries directly, right? That industry connect is what we are doing here. We are taking the students and faculty towards the industries. They are visiting the industries. They are spending their time. They are learning what is shop floor, how to execute, how to create product, what is the supply chain management involves, and how many components are involved to create a product. Example, you know, if you are driving a car, right? The car needs a minimum 2,500 plus components. So from where we are sourcing it, how we are sourcing it, how we are transporting it, is there any way we can make a better efficient way of transporting all this? Is there any way, you know, we can do a better tracking of all these components, how we are getting it together, how we are mitigating the overall risk, how we are doing a better quality control, you know, for this. I think huge opportunities are there in this domain. So I see that, you know, we have a huge opportunities. I think, you know, we have only 10 minutes. So thank you for reminding. But the matter of the fact is, this is the right time. We are on the junction. So I think we as a India, as a Bharat, if we want to become a Vishwa Guru, it is the right time to take things forward. And at the same time, I would like to comment one on the Douglas, you know, a few minutes back, he talked about tariffs. I think I see this as an opportunity, not as a you know, roadblock. I think, you know, this is the right time for India to emerge as a leader and transform this difficulty into a success, and prove that to the entire world that we are a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and help the same country back who put 50% tariff on us. I think, you know, which is much more important than anything else, because, you know, people come and go, but, you know, but India, Bharat has a history that, you know, we feel that the entire globe is our family. You know, when the same country is in trouble, we are happy to help them, and we are happy to help the least developed nations. So what I request everyone of you here, as well as all our student and educational fraternity, is that let us, you know, learn more, share more, and you know, and try to implement it on the ground level, not only within our country, across the globe, on a supply chain management system. Thank you very much.
Excellent. When you run for president, you have my vote. Let's go back to the military. So I think just to talk a little bit about transferable skills and innovation mindset. So in the beginning I mentioned it's, you know, we're seeing the rise of AI and these technologies that are really meaning we need different skills. Imagine back to when cars first appeared and what happened to everybody with, you know, the horse industry. It's exactly like that, where we've seen this massive shift. So my question really from if we look at this really from an army perspective, and this is to General Chauhan, is what can we learn from the Army's internal training models to help employability of the civilian graduates? So now it's saying, what is the Army doing that we can learn outside of the Army?
Right. It is something like, you know, carrying the best practices or copying the best practices. Army has gone into, say, if I talk of the supply chains, one is enhancing the skills. I talked about the institutions. I think it's very important. It goes beyond doubt that the days of Jugaad have gone. And I think we need to have professionals. So one of the best things you can copy outside is have professionals in the field of supply chain management. That is one which I can talk of. And second is upskilling. You see, as we grow into this organization, you get promoted to different ranks. It is not only a promotion. You are being skilled for that in that particular field on a next level, right? He talked about, he was doing engineering, he talked about leadership also, he talked about engineering also. So it is a comprehensive kind of a package which we give. I think that could be undertaken, and the third part is commitment and dedication. So this is one of the most important part in the supply chain. If an item has to reach a particular place, it is my responsibility, my commitment to ensure, irrespective of weather, terrain or any of the conditions, we got to ensure that it reaches place B where it is required to be otherwise delivered. Otherwise, you know, you'll have lost the battle. So I think these are the issues which I thought I must highlight. That's
amazing. I think we could use some discipline in the supply chain world, so that would really help. So then just back to General Kapoor, you've been quiet for a while. What are some of the high demand technical capabilities, operational skills, and specifically probably within the MRO, maintenance, repairs and operations of the Army, and innovation systems that we could be considering outside of that? So specifically around those kind of skills.
Well, I think, I'm sure we all understand that, you know, today I'll start again by saying technology is on the gallop. And while you may want to change your car every 10 to 15 years, in the armed forces we have equipment which does a minimum of 40, may go beyond 60. So if you look at it from a technology standpoint now, actually the biggest challenge that lies is how do you sustain legacy equipment. So at any point in time, we have the legacy equipment, we have the contemporary equipment, and we have the futuristic state of the art. So this is a huge, huge bandwidth to handle, and therefore we need to have skills which will handle the complete bandwidth. What we have tried to do over a period of time is get into what we call creativity and innovation exercises, where we try and plant product improvement and legacy to get it as close to contemporary or state of the art. So therefore, the first skill that we really need is technology for product improvement, which would be, you know, a lot of mechanical engineering, a lot of electronics, a lot of software, a lot of APIs. And therefore, that is one kind of a landscape. But since we are talking of industry, it cannot happen alone in isolation. So we have huge programs on product improvement that we run along with industry to manage obsolescence, to manage upgrades, and whether it is Larsen & Toubro's, whether it is Tata Motors, we have something called maintenance advisory groups. So that is one end of the spectrum along with industry, where we engage to firstly get product improvement, and while we did that, there may be some skill needs, and these skill needs are met through our own training institutions and through the premier institutes in the country. So really we have a lot of MOUs which our institutions have, and on a case-by-case basis, on a need-based basis, we do it. But one good initiative which I'd like to share with the House is something which we have, what we call popularly the Border Innovation Labs. Because a lot of innovation is required in the tactical battle area, the far end of the battlefield. And I think that is where perhaps the industry, academia, DRDO, everybody comes together to create the charisma for warfare. I mean, we recently had Ops Sindoor. If you look at the number of innovations that got thrown up, it was not that it happened overnight. It is a planning which goes on in the border area. So really speaking, there is a huge requirement to look at a consortium of defense industry, academia, which is our intrinsic academy as well, industry, and like I said, the community. And all that put along with some funding from CSR, maybe that will do the trick in times to come. Thank you.
Well, General Kapoor, I definitely feel like managing a supply chain is like warfare at the moment. So I think we've got a lot of commonalities there. We need to wind up for today's session, so I'd like to just give everybody a chance to give some last thoughts. I did want to ask some further questions, but if you are interested, you should definitely talk to Dr. Buddha about his AI language model, which is extremely interesting. So but would you like to just maybe wrap up quickly with that, and then any further comments?
As you know, in our country we have different languages, more than 1600, but officially 23. So we from Ministry of Education, we have created a wonderful multi-modal, multi-type translation tool, which translates any foreign language to Indian language, or Indian language to Indian language, or Indian language to foreign language, in a pictorial way, in a book way, in a audio-based tool. It has so many 75 extraordinary capabilities, but at the same time we have connected and trained our model for the satellite technologies, and it is GPS enabled, and we started training from the agriculture point of view, because I strongly believe that, example, in order to improve and, give the opportunity to our students, it's very important for them to teach the satellite technologies. At the same time, understand in the agriculture production, because food wastage is another biggest concern. Can we utilize supply chain, better efficient supply chain management systems to reduce the food wastage in our country? I think, these are the various ways, but luckily, fortunately, in current infrastructure of our colleges, if you see, right, it is much upgraded, and we are utilizing AR, VR, MVR kind of technologies, and created so many simulations so that the students can learn all this, within their institute itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So let's go to General Kapoor. Any last thoughts from you? Very quickly, please.
Okay, I would say that the need of the hour is a policy to converge certified skills of the kind we saw it in the Cambridge Library, along with synergy, which is very important between academia, industry, government, and community.
Amazing. General Chauhan, anything from you?
Yeah, the learning is a continuous process. I think skill, upskill and reskill, I find you got to learn every day, otherwise you will be left out of the train. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then let's finish off with Prof. Kanapuri.
Yeah, I think I'll just close with what sir was talking about. I don't know how many of you are aware of, there is this institution called as BISAG-N, which actually captures close to about 1,400 layers of information, which actually helps enormously to design your supply chains, work on your networks, everything can be done, a lot of opportunities are there. And we have developed some case studies using that information. That's the information. And my closing remarks are, if at all we are striving to bring it down in terms of logistics, improving efficiencies and reducing the cost, I think industry and academia has to go very close, hand in hand, work together, then probably you have those opportunities to be leveraged for betterment of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such a great and a really distinguished panel. I'm pretty sure the Bharat of the future is going to be amazing, so I'm looking forward to see that. Thank you so much, everyone.